Hi everyone, thank you for joining me today. My name is Melanie and She's Stitchin'. This video is going to teach you how to do the V-stitch, which is a really easy stitch. All you need to know how to do is double crochets. So it's a really good stitch for somebody who's just starting out. This video is part of my series on doing a sample blanket with different stitches. So you can see here in the background, this is the bean stitch, Jacob ladder, and post stitch. And all of these will go together and be the same size later to make a sample blanket. So if you're interested in doing that, all of the other videos are on my channel. Now today I'm going to be using a size 4 yarn, which I'll be using for all of the crochet along videos. And it is it's the Caron 1 pound in here in the background. And then for my sample today, I'm going to be using a Peaches and Cream and Emerald Energy. And you're going to want to start out with a starting chain of 32. If you're going to be working up a V-stitch in a different size, all you need to have is an even number. Now, if you are just starting the crochet along fresh, you can change your hook size in order to make all of the squares match over different, the stitches are all very different, so you need different size hooks. We're going to be using everywhere from a 3.5 to a 5.5 with a few hooks in between. So if you feel like a 3.5 hook is too small to work with the size 4 yarn, you're definitely free to change your yarn or to change your hook. Just make sure that you adjust yourself for all the other patterns. All right, so let's go ahead and get started on the V-stitch. I'll meet you at the end of chain 32. Okay, so here we have our chain of 32. And then we're going to start with a turning chain, and we're going to skip 3 chains, and I like to crochet into the back bumps. So we're going to skip 1, 2, 3, and we're going to go into the 4th one down here. So skip 1, 2, 3 and go into the 4th, and we're just going to do a double crochet, and that's the US terms. So we're going to yarn over once, then insert our hook, yarn over and pull loop through, then we're going to yarn over, pull through 2, and then yarn over and pull through the last 2 for the double crochet. Then we're going to chain 1 and do another double crochet into the same stitch. So yarn over, insert your hook, yarn over, pull loop through, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. And there we have our first V stitch. It's a little bit weird because the turning stitch, but you can see here, there's your V. Now, to do the next one, we're going to skip 1 stitch and go to the next one. So skip this and go here and do another double crochet, chain 1 and another double crochet into that same spot. Oh, looks like I have my Amazon delivery. I don't know if you can hear my background. That's what husbands are for, to get our Amazon deliveries. So we're going to do another double crochet. So just skip 1 stitch and do it here. So insert your hook, double crochet, chain 1, and do another double crochet into the same stitch. So we're going to go ahead and keep doing that all the way across this row. And this is a really easy stitch. So you basically have everything you need to know, but I'm going to meet you at the end, and then I'm going to show you how to turn up and go to the second row. So here we are at the end of the row, and I have 14 V's, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and 14. And then we're just going to do a double crochet to balance it out on the edges so that you'll have nice straight edges. So you're going to end up also skipping 1 and then doing a double crochet just like before. So yarn over, insert your hook into that last chain. It might be a little bit hard depending on how you did your slip stitch. Let's just go in there and we'll do a double crochet to end it off. So we have the 14 double crochets and the edges there to make it 30 stitches across, if you're doing the crochet along with us. One of the reasons why I really like the V-stitch is because after this initial row, it's very easy and you don't really have to count because the hook placement is really obvious. So at the end of the row, if you're going to check on your work, you don't really have to count. You just have to do like a visual check to make sure you put 2 stitches everywhere. So this is a great stitch to do while you're watching TV or something like that. So there's 2 options here for the turning stitch. Now you can just do a chain 3 as your starting stitch, but so definitely feel free to go ahead and do that. But I like to replace that with the chainless knitting double crochet, which I learned from the Moogly blog, and it's just to keep your edges straight. So you can give this a try. It is a little bit difficult, but if you can't get the hang of it, you can also just do a chain 3. So go ahead and pull the slack up to the same height as a double crochet, and then you're going to hold tension here with your pointer finger, and you're going to wrap it around and under so that it looks like you have a yarn over on your hook. And then you're going to insert your hook into the first stitch, like you can see here we have the both loops of the V. So you're going to insert your hook into there, then yarn over, pull loop through, and then it looks like you have 3 on. So you yarn over and pull through 2, just like you would on a normal double crochet, and then yarn over and pull through the last 2. So that's the turning stitch that I like to use in order to keep my edges straight. But if you don't feel comfortable doing that, like I said before, you can just do a chain 3. All right, so now we're going to get back into how to do the V stitches on top of each other. So all that we're going to do is we're going to find this nice big open V that we just made, and we're going to go into the nice open chain space, and we're going to do that V stitch, which is the double crochet, chain 1, and double crochet. So as you can see, super easy to find where to put your stitches, and you don't chain in between or anything. So then you're just going to go find the next big gap in between your V's and do the V stitch again, which is the double crochet, chain 1, and V stitch, or double crochet, sorry. So it's really easy to do, and you just keep completing that all the way through. So like I said, you don't really have to count this after your first row because it's super easy to find the stitches. It would be a pretty big jump to miss a stitch, and it would be really crowded to put 2 V stitches in the same place. So that's why I say that you don't really need to count. So there you can see I did the first 4, and they just kind of go into each other. Now this is a stitch that looks great with any type of yarn. You can see here I'm using a multicolor variegated yarn, and I think that it looks cool. In the back here, I did use most of the colors from my crochet along in the sample. So you can see here is 2 rows in the soft gray from the Caron 1 pound, one row in between. So that'll kind of show you what it looks like depending on how many rows you want to switch. You can kind of have like a zigzag effect if you just do one row of a high contrast color. You could also really have a nice pretty variegated effect, like you can see here if you go from a lighter color to a darker color, or a darker to a light color. So I really like this stitch. I think it's fun to do. It's very easy to do. It's a great stitch to do while you're watching TV, like I said, because it's very easy to find that hole to put it in. So it's not like you have to be very concentrating very much on hook placement. So if you have any questions, please comment down below. And as always, you can check me out on Facebook. I have a crochet along with She Stitchin' Facebook group where you can reach me quickly, and it's people sharing their outcomes on all of the different squares. So it would be great if you join us. I also have a TikTok and a Pinterest and a Tumblr, and it's all under She Stitchin'. And I would be happy for you to follow me on all the different places. TikTok right now is where I've been spending most of my time, just making fun videos. But you're definitely welcome if you're interested. So thank you for taking the time. I'm just going to finish off this row with you one more time. You can see it does really go quickly once you get the hang of it. I'm trying to get my camera to focus. It's a little bit weird right now. Alright, just a few more here. I'm going to go ahead and finish these off screen and just show you the end really quickly. Alright, there we go. I put my last V-stitch in top of the last, which would have been our first V-stitch. And then what we're going to do is we're just going to make sure that we get it, don't put it into, make sure you put for your turning stitch, your last double crochet, make sure not to put it on top of that double crochet that's part of the V-stitch, and to put it into the turning chain. So I'm going to skip this V, this bar of the V, and I'm going to go into the turning chain. And just do ending with a double crochet. There we go. And that will create our nice straight side on each sides. Now, this is a really long sample because I'm using the cotton, so it's not going to match up gauge size because it's a different yarn. But I wanted to pull back and show you what that looks like. Now, if you are doing the crochet along with us, we are putting, as you can see here in the background, a single crochet edge along the outside of all of our stitches in order to make it so that we can attach them easier at the end. Now, if you're going to be doing the crochet along with us, you're going to do the very last row of your V-stitch a little bit different. When I started the crochet along, I was starting with another pattern writer, and I followed her gauge for my squares, meaning that for her, this is how many rows it took for her to get a square. But if you look at mine, mine doesn't make a square because everybody crochets differently. So my double crochets end up being a little bit shorter than most people's double crochets. So if you are doing the crochet along with us, I'm not going to give you an amount of rows that I want you to do. I want you to go ahead and do it until it's square. If this isn't the first square that you've done, just go ahead and do it until the height matches your other squares, okay? That's the most important thing, is that the squares match each other. Not that you do the same amount of rows as me, the person making the patterns up. That's my biggest regret out of all of the patterns I did, is I didn't make them square, so now I have rectangles. But you can definitely add extra rows to get to your squares, okay? Now, the reason why I'm talking about this is because at the top, you're going to have a single crochet across the top of 30 stitches. But for our last row, I am going to give you two options. The first recommendation is to do your V-stitches, but not to include the chain in between, so that you end up with 30 stitches across and you can do your single crochet straight across. If I were to do single crochets across right now, I would have more. I would have whatever 14 times 3 is. I would have, because each of these V-stitches is 3 stitches across if I went into each one, because there's each double crochet plus the chain in the middle. So if I would recommend to you, I'm just going to do a chain 3 and turn. I would recommend for people doing it, once you get to the desired height and you know you're on your last row, to just do double crochet without the chains, or to do your V-stitch without the chains in between. So just do double crochet into the same stitch without that chain 1 in between, so that you can put that single crochet border in without skipping stitches. So that's my first recommendation. My second recommendation would be much more difficult, and I don't recommend it, but what you can do is, now I'll switch to doing this, you can chain 1 and just do your V-stitches like normal, and then I will pretend like I did a whole row like this, so you could just do your V-stitches like normal, and then when you go to put your single crochets in, you can either just skip a stitch or do decreases. Invisible decreases. So I'll turn around now and pretend I'm at the end of the row. So here you can see I did 3 V-stitches, including that chain in the middle. So what I would do at that point, when you go to do your single crochets in, I would do a single crochet and then just skip that chain space in between. But it is going to get a little bit bunchy if you do that way. So that is an option, but it's definitely not what I recommend. It's going to end up getting little bubbles on the top. So you can see it's a little bit wiggly and looks a little inconsistent, whereas these are the ones where I didn't put the single crochet or the chain in between, and those are just going to go straight across. You can see how right here, I don't know, maybe it's hard to see on camera, but it's starting to bow. But these ones that I left out the chain, it won't, or not really bow, but it's starting to cup. So that's why I wouldn't do that. Yeah, you can see these are nice and straight, but here it's a little bit wobbly. So I would definitely say on the last row to leave out that chain one in the middle. So in the middle of your V's, so that you can have a nice end like this. Now when you get to the point when you're putting the ending in, you're going to also do a single crochet in that turning chain on the end. And then the corners are all going to have 3 stitches in them. So there's the stitch that ends. Here's going to be our turn part, starting the turn. So, and then here's going to be the first one starting the horizontal part, or vertical. So each of the corners, when you do your edges, is going to have 3 stitches. So it's a little bit harder to see in the dark blue, but you can see here that it does have 3. 1, 2, 3. You can also, maybe this pale green, it's starting to pill a little bit because it's old. It's done a year ago, but it does have 3. 1, 2, and 3, and they're all in that same turning stitch. And that's going to help us have nice corners, the turns. And that'll help us connect them later. So the harder part of the border is going down the vertical side, because you're going to have to count out and do some math. So obviously here's only 3 rows, but you're going to want to make sure that even the sides also have 30 single crochets. So sometimes you're going to have to insert into weird parts of the stitches to get it to equal out 30. No, it's actually 31, I'm sorry. So it's a little bit weird to think about, but when we have those 3, we're going to end up counting it so that it's 3 in the corner, and I'll count this as 1, 2. So it's really like you have 32 on each side, and you just count that middle one, which is kind of showing up in my light blue yarn here. You're going to count that one for both the vertical and the horizontal, so both sides will be sharing that one. And this is just going to help us when we go back to crochet it together later. So before you get started, just make like a quarter and a halfway point on your squares to make sure that you get the right amount of squares in. So you can see on the bean stitch, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I kind of had 5 sections, and I wanted to get to 30, so I had to make sure that there was 6 stitches per color section, plus the 3s in each of the corners. Okay, so if you guys have any questions, go ahead and ask me, and I will be making a more detailed video about the borders later. So these are just our first 4 squares, and we will have 48 squares in total to make our crochet long blanket with all of the new stitches that you'll learn. So I hope you have enjoyed this video, and I know you'll enjoy doing the V-stitch. It's a really easy stitch to do. I will see you next week. Thank you for joining me. If anybody asks where I am, until next week, just tell them she's stitching.